It must have been resolved because the foundation wasn't involved. It's a great scene, everybody. I'm returning my bouncy ball.
You know, TJ, for being someone that wants to avoid any of the problems, I can't believe you've come on so many times during this specific segment.
That's because I'm helping you to not get canceled.
Okay. So before we start, just like Leptos Greg said, I think it's good to recognize that Serday did eventually revert it. I think it's 10184 is what I saw. Apparently, I thought I had it up in one of my many links in here.
I thought it was the very first one.
The very first one?
It's literally a PR that was closing it, right?
Oh, phase out precompiled. Yes. All right, there we go. Consensus on this thing. Okay, so to clarify, I don't think it has anything to do with 2588, or I don't actually think 2588 has anything to do with the ability to undo precompiled. Serday Derive is going to continue to be slow to compile after this. Yes. The version equality constraint thing is independent improvement that's useful for the cases that already depend on Serday Derive separately to parallelize the still slow builds. Really wants to emphasize that. Okay. So there you go. So you can avoid this whole thing. I don't get this phrase. Yep, done, unstacked. Thanks. Everyone's happy about it.
All thumbs up, no thumbs down. That's good. That's not like the first thread.
It's not like the first thread. Everyone feels good about the change. So just so everybody understands, there's no, it has been resolved, but what happened, I think, is a better one. And I think there's actually a really good thing to be pointed out here about communication. I think is really the key issue here. It does remind me in some sense of the previous one with sponsored link.
I know, it was very funny that this happened shortly after the sponsor link shenanigans.
Yes, it's very, very similar in the sense that it's it's another compiled item. People feel very concerned about the security. The sponsor link one was more egregious because it would take your email. Obviously a problem. But man, did people just lose their minds over the weekend with all of this?
They did. So we should start with what happened at the beginning, right?
Yeah. So
I don't think most people know what happened. You just skipped that it is resolved, so that's good. We're just making sure that if you only watch 70% of the video, first off, shame on you.
Yeah,
watch
shame
the whole
on
thing. But secondly, this was what happened at the start.
All right, hold on. I want to find the proper place, which is this one right here and here. So this is kind of like the start.
Yeah.
All right, TJ, would you like to give a basic working of what happened?
So my understanding is, and so I was trying to figure out, I don't know how to say his name. Detolne? How do you say it?
I assume D is his first name, and then Tolne is his last name.
Mr. Detolne, I don't know, something like that. Detolne. My understanding is basically the problem that they're trying to solve in the Rust landscape is basically that and part of this also, thanks Greg for explaining this as well, was basically when you have proc macros that executes Rust, right? So you execute Rust and then you get new Rust code out the other side. That makes sense. That's how you can write code. It takes in
Rust tokens and it produces Rust tokens.
Yes. And that's just regular Rust code. So you can do whatever you want in there, which means you could hypothetically make HTTP requests. You can crawl the file system. There's no limit. It's just Rust code, right?
Yep.
So you start there, and then there's sort of this twofold problem. The part of the problem is Rust builds take a long time, right?
Everyone agrees on that one.
That's one we're all on the same page about. Okay, this takes a long time. And then the second problem is debug code is much slower than release code. Right? So that's sort of the two things that are going on. So when you run proc macros and you build in debug mode, then when you're running those, they're also compiled in debug mode. And so then that makes your build takes longer in debug mode.
Oh, so you kind of get like a compounding effect of everything.
So that's my understanding. So effectively, the goal of some of these pre-compiled macros, because this is Serday Derive, right? Not Serday itself.
Yep.
Right. So Serday Derive, which you might put Derive on every struct.
Yeah, I literally put deserialized and serialized pretty much on every single struct.
Right. So you might have a lot of these, and for really large repos, you might have lots and lots and lots and lots of those, and those could be in a slow path of your building and basically forcing consecutive linked things, and then you end up in the situation where that really stinks, especially at scale. So it's my understanding of what's going on. So what's the solve or the possible solve here? Well, you compile Saturday Drive into release mode, super ultimate release mode, omega compile time mode.
69, right? Like all the way to the tippity top.
It spent 8 hours compiling it, and then you ship that binary to people so that when they're deriving 80 million structs for their 3 users, me, myself, and I, then they get an actually fast build time for those instead of having to wait around for the debug one to be able to do all the deriving. So that's my understanding of what was happening there and how we got to that, sort of like how this situation makes sense from the maintainer side. And if you read, I think we may read some of the RFC from de Tolnay about this, but basically there's a bunch of features in Saturday and some of these other crates that depend a lot on proc macros where they just feel effectively constrained by the build time.
Yep.
They cannot add new features. It's literally like that there are features and they've closed issues and closed improvements and optimizations or just better choices because this runs during compile time and that makes it suck.
Dang.
And so people are saying that's nice, but it should be opt-in. I think de Tolnay from the start basically said, yeah, that would be nice if Cargo supports this.
Yeah, that sounds
so
about
that's
right.
Basically the I think hopefully that's a fair characterization of how they got there. And maybe there are some other arguments from de Tolnay's position that are stronger than the ones that I was able to find, but a lot of what I saw was just people saying this is bad, like +1, and so it's hard to find sort of the complete argument for why he wanted to do this. And why is this considered drama? If you look at the original thread, you'll see why it was considered drama.
Yeah, I mean, de Tolnay got called a terrorist, or his actions terroristic. So
yeah, I don't know. I think like if you say that someone's actions are terroristic, I feel like that is saying they're a terrorist, right? Like if someone murders someone, you're calling them a murderer.
He acts very murdery. I'm not saying he's a murderer. I'm just saying he probably stabs, people.
Whoa, slow down. He just killed 3 people. I mean, it's not a murder.
He's just murdery behavior. That's all I want to say. And so
this exploded. In a lot and for context, like de Tolnay does have a lot of very important crates. So
yeah,
there's
I
that
think
as well.
It shows one weakness of the Rust ecosystem is that what I see is that there's like a couple people. You got like Tokyo and de Tolnay, and they literally shoulder what feels like half of the Rust ecosystem. And it feels bad because a lot of what they shoulder almost feels like it should be more a part of Rust itself and should be on the responsibility of the Rust team. Like, you go to any language and a part of the standard library is parsing JSON. That's what most people use Saturday for. That's my standard use case is that I'm just using it for JSON. Obviously, if you're using like SWC or using it to produce an AST, and there's all sorts of cool stuff that they can do with that. But nonetheless, it feels very much so like that, where it's like this feels more a part of the, Rust responsibility, but the community has taken its place. It's been doing it for a long time, and there's like 2 people that shoulder half the Rust ecosystem. And so they make a choice that maybe isn't advantageous for the Rust ecosystem. It like grinds to a halt everything that's being done.
So I think in this case, it was more that other people in the Rust ecosystem felt like de Tolnay was including this into Saturday Derive to like force the hand of Cargo to add the features that de Tolnay wanted. And like there's some I don't know, historic issues where it seems like Cargo seems a bit understaffed and stuff too. So there's some, I don't know, some feelings there. I don't know. We can read some other stuff about it, but I think that's hopefully a fair summary of the situation.
Yeah, and I also thought this this very top one right here was really good in the Reddit, which is, it goes, can someone explain how this works? I thought Saturday was a library, not a binary. If I deploy my own binary that uses Saturday to prod, Is this binary included? Saturday Derive is a proc macro crate, which means that compiles to a shout out, a DLL, a dilib, depending on your platform.
Big shout out.
Big shout out. What this change did is to ship the library pre-compiled instead of being compiled on your machine. Proc macro libraries are not included in your own library or in your own binary. The compiler loads them during compilation to generate the code. So what's the concern? In general, they talk about, can you convince your company to have some guy's binary code? Doesn't matter if that some guy is a, quote unquote legend in the Rust community. Are you going to be able to go to your bank IT and be like, hey, this some guy wants me to execute his binary on my machine during build time and in all of our CI?
And there are some difficulties, is my understanding, with producing exactly reproducible binaries. So it's not even like you can sort of prove that these meant the exact same, that they're exactly the same. And I think the other major concern is it basically makes like the Tolne a huge like attack vector, right? It doesn't even matter if he would ever do this or whatever, right? But then if instead, someone would want to attack them and then get everything to be able to put their stuff on every single machine, right?
Yeah, you could imagine like a Saturday Derive or something else, some other package very similarly named that people could get confused.
Oh, I was saying get credentials and push a new version of it with a different one, and then
there's that
you don't have to do an attack vector in Cargo. You literally just get the creds and then push your own one up, obfuscated in a way that you pull all of the end vars into something and send it as an HTTP request, right?
Yeah. And that's actually not completely crazy either, because you'd have such access to so many computers before it could be discovered, right? Like it would be like a good 6 hours before somebody would go, wait a second, right? And then you have this entire, plus you can't delete crates. So they couldn't just like delete that version as soon as possible. They'd have to like publish it and then tell nobody to use that one version, which there'd be some long...
Well, they could delete that particular version. That would be an example where they would delete it.
Yeah, but Cargo would have to step in to do that.
Yes, right. So that part is definitely an attack vector that you would be worried about. I mean, it doesn't run at runtime, but it does run at build time, and usually you would probably have like your secrets maybe in the environment or other things like that.
Especially if you have a CI builder that needs to communicate with databases, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
You'd have a lot of stuff. Okay, so that's like
just for env var in env, make one blob, ship it.
Yeah, Saturday. In fact, even use Saturday itself to JSON stringify that.
There you go. Yeah, exactly.
And ship it up.
The irony.
The irony would be too great. And so, so for me, the thing that I guess my big takeaway is this one right here. So can I read this one? This is my big
go for it.
Takeaway here. So I read this last night, which somebody here effectively just said, hey, I'm working with Fedora Linux. What a loser.
Nice.
And then
tip my hat.
tip my Fedora to that. All of a sudden, he couldn't use it anymore, right? It just kind of quit working. And so he's confused about it. There's a little bit of banter here, a little bit, people kind of talking about it and talking about what they want to see about it. And so people are suggesting, let's move this pre-compiled one to a separate crate, all this kind of stuff. And then it goes all the way down to here. A lot of discussion about it, right? Just about a lot of the specifics. And so this part is, I think, what caused, at least in my opinion, all the issues, which is, thanks for comments, everyone. I'll go ahead and close this. The pre-compiled implementation is the only supported way to use macros that are published in Saturday Derive. If there is an implementation work needed in some build tools to accommodate someone should feel free to do the work. Got him. As I have done for Buck and Bazel, which are tools I use and contribute significantly to. Or publish your own fork of the source code under a different name. Separately, regarding the community or commentary above about security, the best path forward would be for one of the people who cares about this to invest in Cargo Crates RFC. So I think this is where the trying to force Cargo's hand probably comes into. Around first class.
Yep, I think so as well.
Yeah, around first class precompiled macros, that there is an approach that would suit your preferences. Saturday Derive would adopt that when available. As you can see, most people did not like that response.
Yeah, I can understand why they don't like it, but I do feel like Flip could just put a big Giga Chad face going on right here.
It is fairly Giga Chad. Zoom in on the text and slowly go with just...
Like, I get why it's not a good idea. We've already talked about why people wouldn't like this, but at the same time, reading this, don't you just feel like Giga Chad? You know?
Yeah. I hear everything everyone's saying, and I would just like to answer with a no. No, thank you. Go fork your own and contribute to the tools you need to use. As I already did with Basil.
To, you can write an RFC.
Yeah.
I'll maybe think about it then.
But so one thing that I would like to take out of this that I think is really cool is that he did write this sandbox deterministic reproducible efficient WASM compilation, which he talks about being able to reduce these proc macros from 20 seconds to like a half second.
Yes.
And just being able to have a super sandbox environment which only gets a stream of tokens in and can only produce a stream of tokens back out, and you effectively disable every type of system reading, file access, all that kind of stuff. To me, this was this is super cool.
Yes.
I would have never known about it without this publicity stunt. You know what I mean?
Right. That's where I think some of the like feelings of drama in the community is basically right. Like, oh, he's basically going to hold Serde Derive hostage until we approve my RFC and someone implements it. Then I'll fix this crate, right? And you're like, okay. Yeah, I can see why people wouldn't like that. Even I'm not saying that that's what he's doing, right? I'm just saying how you could see that that's the feeling. It's just a hashtag ad.
It was all an ad.
Yeah, like until you can put Twitch usernames in your crate, I'm gonna hold all my crates hostage until it prints, subscribe to the Primeagen on this.
I'm gonna ship a small precompiled binary. It'll only look at your Git stuff. That's it.
And then add 1 second that's like not noticeable, only adding 1 second in Rust, so it needs to add more like 5 minutes. That's more like the only way you'd notice that
if you're not
slower.
A subscriber, it adds 1 minute to the build system.
$5
a month
all this time
for instant speed up.
Everyone's like, you're not sponsoring my project. I'm gonna put a few sleeps in the build RS. That's been the problem all along.
I like it. All right. Do you have anything you want to point out?
This RFC is super cool. What's really interesting is so WASM is like quite a bit slower than native execution, but because of how much faster release build is than debug build, it's still faster to run in WASM, which is kind of cool. Right? Like I feel like that's like pretty sweet how fast the compiler can make things.
Yeah.
It seems awesome.
Yeah. And I think this would make everybody's life better if we could have something. If you can make a dramatic improvement on your compilation step in Rust, I think everybody would be happy.
Yeah, people in chat who are saying it's not a need to have probably are not writing Rust with a lot of other people at a big company, and understand that is one of the things that's slowing down Rust adoption is difficulties of like building this well, right? And people are spending a lot of time to solve those. So yeah, Melky, I'm like this because that's just how transparent I am.
Yeah, he really just his cards are open. Everyone can see them.
Yeah. Also, so here's I do think I have a little like video that does explain the situation pretty well.
How long have you been planning whatever you're about to show me?
So this has been from a few days ago. This was before I sent you the tweets.
I think I've watched it too many times, but I like how even his back arches in this one. It's just like he just sends it.
It's just so shocked.
Look at that. Look at that face.
Oh, so yeah, there you go. That's basically I think that's basically the summary of the situation. It seems like it's been resolved, which is nice. That's good.
Well, I'd say that there's still one more little. There's a couple quick things in here still.
Hit me.
Hit you. Let's see. Oh, dang it, where did it go? It was not too long afterwards. But the thing is that I think that from here on out, just like the mock stuff, even though the mock stuff has all been reverted and all that, I think people genuinely will just distrust David Tolnay.
Yeah.
It's how fast you can earn trust is really, really slow. And how fast you can lose trust is extremely fast.
Yeah, if you had asked me, do I think there's any possibility of a different serialization crate existing ever 1 week ago, I said 0.
Yeah.
And then now it's like 0.001% chance. Like, how many Arch users have a girlfriend?
It's true. Are you going to win the lottery? Will there be another Saturday crate? Who knows? I mean, there's a lot of chances here because I honestly don't even know how to serialize or deserialize Jason other than Saturday. I know there are faster ones. There apparently is one that's all like super sweet, but I honestly have no idea. No, you can't laugh at your joke. We got to just move on as if it's
laughing at chat with the
our user can confirm.
They're the 0.01% chat.
You're the but you 1%ers. All right, and then lastly, I do think it'd be fun to kind of read this really amazing, because this is actually how I stumbled into it.
Yeah,
was reading this thing right here.
Yep.
Okay, so I had no idea what happened. Someone just sent me this random link, and so I was just like, I'll look at this random link, and it just like I could not believe what I was actually reading. Right, so there's a couple.
This is the drama.
Yeah, this kind of what set it all apace. Let's see. So he talks about, hey, there's a couple things that they're doing. The last one is pinning Saturday Derive. Saturday Derive since 1.0.171 ships a non-reproducible binary blob in what's a complete compromise of supply chain security. This is done in order to reduce compile times, yet also for the maintainer of Saturday, dTollNay, to leverage Saturday's position as the 8th most downloaded crate to attempt to force changes to the Rust build pipeline. While dTollNay's contributions to Rust are respectable, being behind Sin, Quote, and Proc Macro 2, probably the only person that even understands proc macros at this current point. The top 3 crates by downloads, along with...
Well, who's making proc macro 3?
I know. If it's so great, why isn't it a trilogy?
Yeah.
Along with this air, great library. Anyhow, great library. Async trait saves people's lives and more. I believe also being a part of the Rust project, they have unfortunately decided to refuse to listen to the community on this issue or even engage with counter commentary. Given their political agenda, they seem to be they seem to try to be accomplishing with force. I'd go as far as
in the military.
I know. I'd go as far as to call their actions terroristic, as they're using the threat of a binary blob as justification for cargo to ship proper support for binary blobs. That's intense.
That is intense.
This is arguably representative of dTollNay's past work on Watt. Watt was a WebAssembly interpreter to execute a precompiled proc macro. This would save compile time of proc macros, yet sandbox it so its full binary did not have to be ran. All right. Unfortunately, okay, there's some more stuff on this. dTollNay also seems to be giving up their role as a FOSS maintainer, given that Saturday no longer works in several environments. While FOSS maintainers are not required to never implement breaking changes, the version number is still 1.0, while FOSS maintainers are not required to follow Semver, releasing a very notable breaking change without a new version number in an ecosystem which does follow Semver, and then refusing to acknowledge bugs as bugs with their work does meet my personal definition of not actively maintained their existing work. So that's also pretty large jump, I'd say, on this one.
Yeah.
But there you go. Then it goes through and it links all the different things, right? Using all this. I was a bit surprised by the seething review here.
Yeah, I don't know anything about this person or the project or anything, but to find this in a commit message, you're like, holy cow, things are getting serious.
Yeah, I agree with this. I agree. I would say that no matter what, a good rule of thumb is be careful what you write when you get angry. I talked earlier about mentorship and the importance of it. And the boss that I said was pretty hard, or could be pretty hard. He one time told me that I need to learn to step away from the keyboard more frequently and just walk away and let things simmer for a second before I type it out. Because, no matter what, even though no one's gonna know who sent this, I don't even know who sent this, right? I'm not even gonna look at the name. I don't need to know. It's just the people that will know who you are will go, man, this is pretty intense review. I don't know if I'd want to be the person attributed to writing this statement.
Yeah, agreed.
Especially since it's been already resolved and you just have this scathing review of it.
Yeah, it is a little bit I mean, he did listen it seems he did listen eventually to the counter commentary and the community, right? And he merged something else.
Yep. All right. Well, there you go. That's it.
There you go. It's nice to see him actually fix a problem. Must be because never mind. I'm not gonna say anything. See ya.
No, wait, what?
I was gonna say this is a joke. Attention, YouTube Flip. If you cut this, I'll be very mad. It must have been resolved because the foundation wasn't involved. Flip. Oh, it's my last video. It's great seeing everybody.
Oh my goodness, DJ.
I'll just bag it up. And I'm returning my bouncy ball. Take it back.
911, I'd like to report a murder.
I can't. I don't deserve this anymore. I don't deserve this anymore.
Dude, TJ, that was so good. See, TJ, you should just tweet some of those things more often, okay? Because look at me. Look at this. I'm enjoying your street credit right now.
I know.
Oh, look at that.
I know. That's all right.
So,
okay, I need to go. I think I need to eat some lunch. Yeah. really step away from the keyboard.
Just let your wife know that maybe this next few months might be a bit more complicated.
Honey, I hope you've been saving part of our paycheck.